Who will the Rams draft with their first-round pick since 2016? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you haven't yet, do us a huge favor and subscribe to that Locked On Rams YouTube channel and drop your comments down below. We're going to start having some mailbag episodes every week, so if you have any questions, any topics you want to see us dive into, drop those down below in the comments section, and you'll be featured on this show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. SI 24/7 Sports, Dodgers Nation. Now the Rams 4 Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just completed his 8th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. And on today's show, we've got a jam-packed show for you. We have got our divisional round picks that no one asked for, but we're going to give them anyway. We're going to talk about when can the Rams catch the 49ers? Will the 49ers fall off next season? A quarterback the Rams might want to consider should they get their Jordan Love in this year's draft. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, Travis, it is a potential football Friday, so it kind of hurts a little bit. Yesterday, I was kind of thinking to myself, if you guarantee me no turnovers, 300 plus yards for Matthew Stafford, 24 points given up for the Detroit Lions, I probably would have felt good about this being a football Friday, but that just isn't the case. So it's,
it's funny,
D-Mac, kind of my point.
You know who else I think feels like you feel and I feel? Sean McVay. I think that the more you listen to him do his post games or his post-mortems, his day after press conferences, I think he knew he had a really good team. And I think he knew that the road back to a title was kind of laid out in a very favorable way for the Rams if they were able to beat Detroit. Here's the one thing that I don't know if this helps or not, Rams fans, but it helps me a little bit, and I'll throw it out there for you. I think Detroit's really good. They didn't lose to a bad team. Like, had they lost to Tampa, had they lost to a team that that they were better than, had they lost to a team that you felt like, man, we left some things out there and we threw it away, we fumbled on the goal line, threw it in, whatever it was, the Rams played pretty well. A couple of decisions that we've already spent a lot of time talking about that the everydayers have heard, but it's not like Detroit got lucky. Detroit played really well at home, which they earned with those 12 wins. It's a tough pill for the Rams, and I think that they could have beaten Tampa for sure. And who knows what happens if they go back to San Francisco. So I'm with you, but at least you lost to a good team.
And I'll add one more, too. Brett Maher made all of his kicks. He goes 3 for 3. The long was 29, wasn't that long, but if you told me all those things, he made them 67 yards. The touchdowns, no turnovers. You would felt good about a Rams win, but look, I digress. We will be just fine. It's all about 2024. Now we're going to talk about 2024. We're going to start a series here on Locked On, 10 reasons why you should be more excited than ever about your Los Angeles Rams this offseason. And the first one we're going to get into is you have your first round pick since 2016. Now, will Les Snead decide to trade that pick? We'll see. But the fact is they have that draft capital, and it's going to allow them to get some day one plug and play. You're a starter. You're an impact player that can address a serious need. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see what they do with this pick.
You can watch the draft for the first time since 2016, right? Like that, everybody gets so fired up for the draft. And when I would do Locked On by myself or go on to other people's pods and all these things, I talk about it. It's like, yeah, we don't have a pick. Yeah, I don't know. How are you going to do nothing? Go play golf? I don't know. There's nothing going on day one for the draft for the Rams for nearly a decade. So this is exciting that they have a pick. I'm with you, D-Mac. I think that you need to. Here is my draft philosophy in a nutshell, right? There's two basic ways to look at this. Do you draft for need or do you draft for best available? I'm a big best available guy. Lay out who you like the most. If you think that you have a guy that you like the most in your, if they're was it 19 where they're going to pick right now, if there's somebody at 19 that you think you can get at 35, maybe you trade back. Maybe you try to accumulate some picks. If there's a guy at 19 that you don't think is going to last past 14, maybe you move up and you go get him. That for the first time in a long time, they have some flexibility. They have the ability to be aggressive if they want to be aggressive, to be a little more patient if they want to be patient, but they have optionality for the first time since they picked Jared Goff was the last time they had a first round draft pick. Jared Goff, the guy who feels like he's been in the NBA or the NFL for a very, very long time. He was the last one.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to think that. And you got to give this organization all the credit because for the most part, they've had success with their strategy, right? We went from the F them picks era to last year, it was, hey, you got any of them picks, right? So it changed a little bit. Will we return to that? That remains to be seen. But look, we also saw them trade back and they selected Taylor Rapp back in 2020. But I think when you look at what they were able to do in last year's draft and get the impact players like a Steve Avila, who started every single snap, every single game, he graded out as one of the best rookies in the sport. And like you always mention on the show, and I love this point, when you don't talk about a Steve Avila, that's usually a good thing. That means he's doing his job at a high level, right?
Yeah, no, look, if you never mention the offensive line other than to say we never mentioned the offensive line, means you got a really good offensive line. When you're talking about them all the time, go back to that 2023 or 2022 season, it's because you're pulling guys out of the police academy to play left guard. And that's what they were doing a couple of years ago. So congratulations to Avila for having a phenomenal season, to Lark Jackson for holding down left tackle. This is a undrafted free agent that they signed a few years ago that they found some really good players. And, Kevin Dotson, Rob Havenstein's been here a long time. Coleman Shelton held down center for a really long time. Is a very, very good year for those five guys.
There's no doubt about it. And I think that to your point earlier, do you go with the best player available, right? Do you address a certain need? Because we know that there's obvious needs on this team. And I think defensively, what we saw in that game against the Lions is you couldn't really play this complementary football on the defensive side, right? If you were sending Ernest Jones as a blitzer, that compromises another position. It's like a game of whack-a-mole, right? I mean, you don't have the coverage in the secondary to have the blitzers and get the pressure. So yes, they need an edge rusher. Yes, you need a lockdown corner, but typically you don't see edge rushers in year one. Rookies just come right out of the gates and have a big impact. Me personally, even though edge rusher is a need, you had Byron Young last season. He definitely had some flashes, had a successful rookie season, but I think that is the position where you go out there and possibly spend that money where you're flush with cash, you have the cap space to go out and get a Danielle Hunter, to go out there and possibly get a Burns, right? But for that draft pick, I think that's when you go lockdown corner. I mean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, the name alone is something that intrigues me, right? Kool-Aid McKinstry, get your lockdown corner potentially. Then maybe if you get your left tackle there, I mean, depending on how you feel about Alaric Jackson, there's some left tackle options. Okay, Fuaga from Oregon State could be available. So it just kind of depends on who is there. If they do want to go edge rusher, you got Jared Verse from Florida State. You got Jonah Elise from Utah. So there are some names that could be there in some high-quality talent, high-quality picks.
Yeah, I think this is why it's so exciting. Because I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but they have a lot of areas of need, but they don't have anything at the same time that is a glaring problem that you have to try to address. And they've got more than one way to attack the problem. You can try to solve it through the draft. You can try to solve it through free agency. So they've got two ways to do it. If you see a tackle that you love and it's your turn to pick, take him. If you see a corner that you love, then you take him. If there's nobody there, it's like, look, I kind of like this guy, but he feels more like a second or third day guy. Move back, trade the pick. Only do what you want to do. Take the players that you want to take. Don't just because you have the pick feel like you need to do it. It can be an asset to go get you a lot of different things, and they just need to accumulate talent. The Rams have done really well later on in the draft. Find guys that can maybe be a little bit more slow to develop if that's what you want to do, but they have optionality for the first time in a long time.
And one thing they could do, Travis, is they could try to get their Jordan Love. Do you already think of the future of the quarterback position? Go out there and draft a quarterback that sits behind Matthew Stafford. Could this quarterback be available? Should they select him? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. And once you're riding in style, you can open up that FanDuel app on your phone, right? Because the NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel. A little postseason action at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're going to talk about a lot of those lines coming up here in just a little bit. But if you're a new customer right now, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place. How easy is this? One $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, when you place a $5 bet. The app is super easy to use. There are a lot of different ways that you can play, a lot of different ways that you can bet, like live same game parlays. You can find a lot of bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. That's a great way to find some popular parlays, and a whole lot more, right? You can find totals, you can find money lines, you can find spreads, a million different ways to do it at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there. And you can be an everyday listener too. All you have to do is listen to every episode, watch every episode, and then you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. And a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You got Locked On Lakers, you got Locked On Dodgers, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Clippers. I'm telling you, Locked On Clippers, underrated show. His name is the Dime Dropper. I'm telling you, this guy,
Great
his
name.
name alone, he's the Dime Dropper, man.
Yeah,
But,
that's a great name.
it's a great name, yeah. And here in our second segment,
It's
Travis,
no Kool-Aid McKinstry, but it's a good
Kool-Aid
name.
McKinstry. I'm sipping that Kool-Aid McKinstry. I'm telling you, man. Name alone, it makes a difference. Numbers, names, all this stuff plays a factor in my draft process. But Travis, I think when you look at the remaining quarterbacks here, one of them is considered the best in the league in Patrick Mahomes. He sat behind Alex Smith. You got Jordan Love. He sat behind Aaron Rodgers, right? They both those teams traded up to get those guys. The big question is, you have a first-round pick, and yeah, you're not going to get a Caleb Williams. Yeah, you're not going to get a Drake May, but could you get a J.J. McCarthy type, someone like that has upside, that is leaving Michigan early? He sits behind Matthew Stafford for a few years as the heir apparent and maybe learns from him. That's a question that the Rams might have to ask themselves this offseason.
So a couple of things. Number one, this is all predicated on Matthew Stafford, right? Because he's good enough that you don't have to answer well, you're going to play the other guy, right? You can't bring the future in if the present isn't locked down. Like the guys that you just talked about, I think are super important. You talked about Patrick Mahomes sitting for you. Well, Alex Smith was the number 1 draft pick in the league, right? That you can, it's not outrageous to say, we'll get to you in a second. We have the number 1 pick in the league. I get it. He wasn't Joe Montana at the time, but he was the number 1 pick in the league. Aaron Rodgers was Aaron Rodgers, right? That there's no, hey, Rodgers isn't doing his job. Put Love in there. That you need, the starter needs to be rock solid. If the plan is, we're going to have you sit here and watch for a year or more, because we know what happens the second a borderline starting quarterback starts to wobble a little bit. It's, well, why don't you play the other guy, right? With all due respect, and I'm a huge fan, if you had a quarterback like Brock Purdy who wobbled a little bit, and it's like, well, he's Mr. Go get the first rounder in there, there's going to be some chatter in there. Stafford being as locked in as he is, I think, is incredibly important to this, because nobody's going to be advocating, let's get Stafford out and put the new guy in. That's number 1. Here's the second part of this. You got to like whoever it is you're taking. You can't just take him because you're saying, oh, now's an opportunity to take that quarterback of the future. You need to really like him. You need to think that if he had to play, he could play. This can't necessarily be a project at the same time. I know those things are a little contradictory along the way, but don't just do it because you can do it. Do it because you want to do it. Do it because you think J.J. McCarthy or whoever is available at that spot is going to be your quarterback for the next 7, 8, 9 years, not just because, hey, we got a first-round pick. You spend first-round picks on, quarterbacks, edge, and corners. You got to really like that player if you're going to go do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there with the Stafford point as far as his security level, his self-esteem level as a quarterback. He knows that he's not going to be looking over his shoulders. It's not going to be that meme where it's the boyfriend, the girlfriend, and the boyfriend's looking back and it's J.J. McCarthy or whoever it is, Bo Nix. No, that's not the case. This is not a conversation about, are we drafting someone to supplant him? Now, Matthew Stafford, you're going to get every single ounce of Matthew Stafford until his career is over. Yeah. I think he's going to retire as a Los Angeles Rams and player, and I think that hopefully that's with multiple Super Bowl titles, right? That's not the question here. The question, though, is you have your draft pick at that spot, and like you point out, you got to like him. I think you got to love him. I think you got to love that quarterback as far as his potential. Now, I've seen some mocks out there that do have the Rams maybe showing some interest in J.J. McCarthy. It's all speculation, but just for a little thought exercise here, what are the pros of a J.J. McCarthy? Well, one, my man is 20 years old, right? 20 years old. He was born in 2003, right? 2003. And this is not a Penix, a Bo Nix, right? Where if they sit for a couple years, they're like 26 range. If McCarthy sits for a couple years, he's 22, 23, where Jordan Love was 6'3", did not throw a ton at Michigan, right? They controlled the ball, they ran the football, but he's an athlete, he's a winner, and when he did throw the ball, he forced the ball into some really tight windows, and I think there is some upside there that's very intriguing.
You know what else I like, and you mentioned it, and this is such a ethereal thing to try to hold on to because it's completely, you can kind of squint and make it whatever you want. Guys that win tend to keep winning, right? Guys that win in high school tend to keep winning in college. Guys that win in college tend to keep winning in the pros. There are exceptions, of course. I applied this logic to Matt Leinert's professional career. Didn't work out like that, right? Matt Leinart kills it at Mater Dei. He kills it at USC. And I'm thinking the dude just kind of has that dust sprinkled on him that he finds a way to win football games, and it never happened for him. So it's not a sure thing, but I like guys that are used to winning, guys that expect to win, guys that go places because they think they have an opportunity to win. And that's McCarthy. Now, I'll be honest, when I watch him, and I'm not a draft Nick, I'm not somebody that's talking about arm slot and footwork and all. I don't know what, I'm not even going to pretend to know. Here's what I do know. When I watch him play, it doesn't scream NFL quarterback to me, right? Like when you watch him, it's not like, oh, that guy's a pro. When you watch Justin Herbert play, you're like, oh, that's a pro. It looked like a pro quarterback. You look at some of these guys, they are professional quarterback. They got kind of that look. I'm not saying McCarthy couldn't be great. I'm just saying when I watched him, it's like, yeah, that guy's really good, but I can't automatically see it in the NFL. And a lot of guys haven't fallen into that category, and they turn out to be great NFL players. But Matthew Stafford looked like a pro at Georgia. I don't know if that's J.J. McCarthy.
See, that's where I agree with you. And like I said, I'm not throwing out. I've been feeling really good about cornerback for quite some time now. I'm going to give myself a couple of weeks to really decide where I want them to go with this pick. But just when you kind of look behind McCarthy, and I agree with you, he doesn't scream like, okay, this is a franchise quarterback. But the age, the arm strength that he did show, the athleticism, 100%. The height. I mean, he does check off some more boxes than I thought before I was going into it. I mean, this is someone that's so young. I mean, he didn't have to live through Y2K, right? He didn't live through Y2K, man.
How did we ever survive? How did we ever get through that? What a miracle.
It really was, man. It was 11:59. We were panicking, scrambling. I mean, it was crazy, man. It was nuts. Chaos. But yeah, I mean, also too, how about Jaden Daniels? Jaden Daniels, 23, right? Heisman Trophy winner. He's not as old as a Nix or a Penix could be. But look, for me, I'm in a perpetual state of win now mode. And I think that you get a player that helps this team win next season, and it's win the championship and then worry about the next championship. Win the championship, then worry about the next championship. A franchise like Green Bay, you're not guaranteed the lure and talent to Green Bay, as iconic as that franchise is. Same thing with Kansas City. The Rams are going to be able to find themselves a franchise quarterback one way or the other.
I think so too, and I think that you're right. I think that championship window got kicked wide open again because of Puka, because of Kyren, because of Avila, because of Kobe Turner, because of Byron Young, that they hit big in a draft and their quarterback is still at the peak of his powers. So that window that might have been open like this is now wide open because of that. So I'm with you. Let's hit the gas and let's try to see what you can come up with over the next few years. And the window has always been kind of Aaron Donald, and he's still a huge part of what it is. But the window, I think, has gone from Aaron Donald's window to Matthew Stafford's window, and you got to maximize what's left in there. There's still a lot left in there, but it's not like you have a 10-year window. You probably have more like a 3-year shot where he's still going to be at the very best that he can be.
There's no doubt about it. And coming up in our next segment, when you talk about win now, when can the Rams catch the 49ers? When will the 49ers fall off? How wide is that championship window? And we got our picks for the divisional round that no one asked for. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
PrizePicks is awesome, right? They give you these copies when they want to talk about these things, and mention this and mention that. Let me just tell you, PrizePicks is fun. It is super fun to play. It's super easy to play. So put the PrizePicks app on your phone, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick between 2 and 6 players, and you can win up to 25 times your money. Think about that. You can turn $10 into $250 by choosing more or less than their stat projection, right? You look at it. Christian McCaffrey, more or less than 75 rushing yards, right? You want to do that. Joe Burrow, when he was playing, more or less than 2 touchdown passes. All of these things, it's super easy to figure out. You make your picks and you win money. PrizePicks also has got a reboot policy so that if your entry stays in play, even if one of your guys gets hurt. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return, that player's rebooted. PrizePicks is the only DFS platform with an injury insurance policy. So get to it. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. Let me tell you again, you're going to want to have fun. You got a chance to win money. You're going to love watching these games right down to the last final second. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Your code is also LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for being Locked On Rams, your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Travis, we got the divisional round. I don't know where you stand on this. Do you consider this the best weekend in football? I mean, you got the wild card, you got the NFC Championship, but I think you got 4 great games. And we're talking about the 49ers Packers first, because the 49ers, I feel like there's tons of pressure for them to win this Super Bowl this year. If you look at the path for them, it's never going to get easier. And you look at this roster next season with their cap situation, with the age, Trent Williams going to be 36. Armstead 31, Hargrave 31, Kittle 31, McCaffrey 28, which for a running back is old. Deebo Samuel 28, Bosa 27. So I think this team absolutely has to win the Super Bowl this year, or you're going to start to see them decline next year because they're going to have to play Brock Purdy.
Well, you're going to have to pay Purdy. That's a huge part of it for sure. And the other thing is, like, they are where the Rams were a few years ago, where, hey, look, you got your squad. You got your guys. You got everybody where they need to be. You can kind of add some pieces here and there around the margins to try to get a little better. But this is as good as it's going to get. They're really good, right? I don't think that there's a huge argument that they're not the best team in the league. The best team in the league doesn't always win. It doesn't mean they're going to punch their ticket, but I think they're a really good team. That's not easy to say as a Rams fan, but San Francisco is really good. And here's the rub with San Francisco. And this is what, Rams fans are very lucky with Sean McVay. I'm pretty sure Kyle Shanahan's awesome. I'm about 94% of the way there that he's an awesome coach. What I'm not sure is when it gets tight as you know what, does he make good decisions? And I'm not even going to throw the 28-3 thing on his head right now because everybody does, but it's there, right? That when it gets tight, what do you do? I think that's the biggest question with the Niners, but they're really good. I expect them to absolutely stomp Green Bay this weekend, kill them.
You got them winning big. Okay, I see it. I see it. Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I think that they're going to take care of business against the Packers. Then might as well just jump into these picks. So I got the 49ers beating the 49ers beating the Packers. Hopefully they don't beat themselves, but I think they're going to cover too. 9.5 point favorites against that Green Bay team. I got them winning that one. I got 49ers 31, Packers 21. And Tampa Bay, Detroit, this feels like the one that's most near and dear to our heart after what happened last week. The Bucs, they beat the Lions in week 6, a different team. You have the two-headed monster in Montgomery and Gibbs. They really emerged since then. Lions 27 against the pass. The Lions also bring a lot of pressure. I think the Lions win that one as well. I think the Lions take care of business, and they somehow, some way, I'm going to have to wash my mouth out with a bar of soap. The Lions in the NFC Championship game versus the 49ers. I can't believe I'm saying that.
I think they're going to win. I think they're going to cover. Is it 6.5, Doug? That's the last FanDuel I looked. It was 6.5, and it's they better, right? Because the very last thing you want is to see a Tampa team that's in the NFC Championship game and think about it through a Rams lens, which is really all you had to do was beat the team that couldn't beat Tampa. That's it. I think it'll feel different. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that the Lions have that thing where, hey, look, this is a real opportunity. We talked about San Francisco's window. Well, Detroit's window is as open as it's going to be as well for all the same reasons. So I think they're going to come in fully committed, fully ready to go. I expect them to win as well.
Yeah, and I have them covering too, 28-20. I think that freaking stadium, it felt like a college game, felt like a raucous college game. I don't know if you saw, as Baker Mayfield was talking to his former Rams teammate.
I did see that.
And he told them that was louder than they've ever experienced of any stadium. So it is going to be lit, as the kids say, in Detroit for sure. And then we got Kansas City versus the Buffalo Bills. I think this is going to be the classic. I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend.
Me too.
And it's an exciting matchup because you got the Bills at home. It's essentially Mahomes' first true playoff game. And it's going to be nice for Taylor Swift to be there and have a Bills-Chiefs game breakout at her concert. And it's going to be really cool. But still, I think that the Bills win. I got the Bills winning at home. No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Shout out to the great Chris Berman.
I got Kansas City in this one. I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes until Patrick Mahomes is out, right? When he's home and doing whatever it is Patrick Mahomes does when he's not playing football, then I'll think that he's not going to win the next game. I am not picking against Patrick Mahomes, and I'm really not picking against Patrick Mahomes against the Buffalo Bills. I would like to see Taylor Swift go away from all of my football in the future, but I think we're going to see her again in the AFC Championship game. I don't think we're there yet.
Wow. I mean, why would you say? I mean, it's nice to have a football game at her parties, right? I mean, I think she's. Here's that. Give me Andy Reid's icicle mustache over Taylor Swift shots. Okay,
so
give me that. Give me that. Look, but I'm
not even anti-Taylor Swift. I'm good, man. I get it. She goes out with one of the players. Cool. Can we just move on? Like, please? I just can't do it anymore.
We can't. We can't. More. They're going to be more T-Swizz, unfortunately. That's what you're going to see. But hey, and for me, I think the Bills end that. I think they end the NFL year. I got the Bills winning this one. And then the final game, Ravens versus Texans. Really, other than the Rams and the Texans, they were the surprise teams of the NFL this season. CJ Stroud, the Texans, they absolutely smoked the Browns at home, but you were going up against the big bad Baltimore Ravens. I got the Ravens winning this one 37-24.
I think the Ravens, the two number one seeds here, I think win big. I think they're a lot better than the teams that they're going to play. I'm a CJ Stroud fan. I like that Houston won a playoff game. I lived in Houston for a period of time. I know how big of a deal it is when that football team is good there, and I'm happy for the folks in H-Town. Cool. I think Baltimore's going to drill them. I mean, I think that we're going to see Lamar Jackson, all the noise, can he win playoff games, blah, 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 blah. Here it comes. This is another MVP season for him. This is an opponent that is not nearly as good as the Baltimore Ravens are. I think that one could be a runaway as well.
I agree. I think that's the one game where that Ravens team, once they get going, they get unstoppable. And I feel really good about them winning the Super Bowl too. But we got Bills, got Ravens, got Niners, and we got the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff gets back to the NFC Championship game. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And as always, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house is Locked On Rams house?